We're here with film history, the history of film. It's KHJ, Charlie Tuna in the morning. It's 75 degrees today in Los Angeles because global warming really hasn't happened all that much yet. But just wait. Our grandchildren's going to be mighty hot. Here's the doors. All right. Are we recording?
Yeah.
We're...
I have no idea when Dev starts on this.
Oh, me neither. Is it now?
It can't be now. There's no way. Wait, it's coming up. Okay, hold on.
Okay.
Places.
The history of film. That matter who you when the lights go dim. From James Cagney to Nosferatu and stunts that shock you and dirty tricks studios made. From Wings to Top Gun, movie stars and no ones, romantic crazy fans that leave no real fun. Hollywood is film history in Hollywood. They chase the Oscar, but it's all a sham, just like Shaq and Kazam. All your dreams can come true. Film history, the history of film. All of it made for you.
Good God, that was terrible.
I'll figure it out.
Sounds good to me. Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have gathered here today to talk once more about our man James Cagney, part two. Everyone, this is film history.
The history of film.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
I had some ice in my mouth. I didn't know we were doing the whole coordination thing, and then you like paused and looked at me. I was like, "Oh, I was supposed to jump in here."
That's all good.
So for all
Do it
you
one more
listeners
time.
out there, the way you start a podcast is with a mouthful of food.
Right. Be sure to take a big bite of something right before you start recording.
I didn't know I'd have to speak initially. Okay.
No, I hear you.
Yeah.
All right. Welcome to Film History.
The history of film.
That'll work. We're gonna keep it. We're gonna keep that one. Yeah, we're on part 2 of James Cagney. We're definitely not re-recording this after already having recorded about 6 episodes already. This is our first time recording part 2.
Well, your tried and trusted associate Devin here befuddled the recording on his end. So
You know what? It's all good. There's a good side of this. We have now done way more research for James Cagney than we did when we originally recorded part 2.
That's very
so, now we know.
We're more experienced now. It's gonna sound a little less rough, hopefully.
Yeah.
This is part 2 deluxe revisited.
Yeah, because all the
remastered.
episodes after this are so good. Like, we really kind of found our groove, especially in Waterworld. I can't wait for you guys to hear that one in like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it might not be the worst thing in the world that we're doing this over.
Yeah, not at all. I'll give you a little recap on part 1 right now. I'm going to let old radio voice man take over for a bit, if you guys don't mind.
Tune your dials to 1955.
Where we last left our hero, James Cagney grew up in a tiny, shabby apartment in New York City during the dawn of the 1900s, with his mom, dad, and 5 brothers and sisters. His father, James Sr., was a drunken Irish boxer bartender who'd often practice his bottle toss and his left hook on his long-suffering wife and the other kids. As a child, James discovered a passion and talent in tap dancing. He danced on cellar doors for money and even became known as Cellar Door Cagney. He also dabbled in boxing and baseball, almost becoming a pro in each. One summer, he spent some time at his aunt's house, who happened to live across the street from Vitagraph Studios, where he'd often sneak onto sets and watch his favorite actors work. This gave him the acting bug, and after a few small plays here and there, he managed to nail an audition for an off-Broadway play, and thus began a 10-year-long career on Broadway and in vaudeville.
There you go.
So
There's your recap. Thank you, Mr. Radio Man.
Thank you. I meant to say 35 instead of 55, but whatever.
Where does Radio Man go after this? He just walked out the door.
Who knows? He's going on to do the same thing for other podcasts. I'm sure. I'm sure he does this for a lot of places.
Wherever there needs old time radio.
Yeah, exactly.
He'll be there.
He'll be there. You just conjure him.
Has not dived into film acting yet.
No, not yet. So in part 1, we broke down who James Cagney was as a person, how he grew up, and ultimately the Broadway and vaudeville part of his acting career was all in part 1. And in part 2 today, we're going to dive into the absolutely fucking wild adventure that was James Cagney's film career.
Okay.
Because James Cagney had a film career that started right there in 1930, 3 years before the Screen Actors Guild was formed in 1933. And so this episode is going to be a lot about how the studio system worked at the time, actors' contracts, regulations, lack of regulations. And yeah, like I said, 3 years before the Screen Actors Guild was even formed, so there just wasn't really a whole lot of like human rights and shit going on in these studios.
Anyway, so and wasn't it kind of like record contracts today where they just they're basically signed to, instead of a record label, it's like a movie studio, and you do a certain number of movies for them under your contract?
Exactly. Yeah, okay. You would sign a contract for one studio, and they would work you. You were a workhorse. These contracts were brutal usually, unless the only way that they wouldn't be brutal is if you were like a big name. Then of course you would get a little bit better of a contract here and there. But we're gonna get into, I mean, I teased it in part 1 a little bit. But James Cagney at one point was almost killed on set with live ammo that they used in the movie. And this was one of many films that he did where they used live ammunition on set.
Did blanks just not exist? Like, did squibs not exist?
It was just too expensive. That was the thing. They had them, but it was like, no way. We can save some money.
We can save so much money by actually shooting them.
Yeah.
Was there, so there was someone's job on set, like sharpshooter?
He was a sharpshooter. He usually would carry a Thompson submachine gun, and to steady his nerves, he would drink like a bottle of whiskey before he was going to shoot at you. His name was like Old Joe,
Have you guys ever shot a Thompson?
Yes, I have. I fired one in Vegas once.
I did too. I shot one in Wyoming, and those things just take off.
They are not sniper rifles.
No, not at all. They're painters. That's why they call it painting it with lead.
Yeah. My grandfather carried one in World War II. And he told me, I mean, morbid joke, but he told me literally the way that you would shoot someone with this thing is you would aim at like the bottom left of them and just let it sweep up to the right and spray them. Basically.
Holy shit.
This thing, yeah.
So but at least was it his job to be sharpshooter, or was he also like the janitor that they just pulled over?
I'm sure he did. He was probably also like the bartender on set, the mechanic. Yeah.
Hey buddy, can you come? We just need you to do something real quick. All right, just take this gun and.
This guy with greasy overalls is gonna fire this Thompson at you. Don't worry. This guy's really good with it. But James Cagney, I mean, like I said, we'll get deeper into this in the episode, but it was so normal. It was like, this is another live ammo scene,
Probably literally getting to this right now. What's the catalyst of him getting into films? Like, what did...
Yeah, that's perfect question. The last episode we ended in 1929. James Cagney, at the time, he was doing a play called Maggie the Magnificent with co-star Joan Blondell. And she's going to come up a lot. Joan Blondell was James Cagney's main, co-star.
Yeah. Angelina Jolie to his Brad Pitt.
Exactly.
The Drew Barrymore to his Adam Sandler. Go on forever.
Oh, God. 50 First Dates. Oh, Lord. Anyway, I just had to say it out loud. That movie happened. So the critics were so horned up for their chemistry on stage of Maggie the Magnificent that the duo booked another play called Penny Arcade. This was a story about a mother who owns a penny arcade on the boardwalk of Coney Island, and her two sons that live with her, one of them being Harry Delano, played by Cagney. And her two sons are growing up to be gangsters. So Joan played Cagney's love interest, Myrtle, and Cagney played this, like, Coney Island kid who was Breaking Bad and under his mother's roof. You know,
Because you know what I think of when I think of Penny Arcade on Coney Island? Monsters.
Oh yeah, yeah, man. They used to have a lot of weird businesses back in the mob. Yeah, and actually that is what it was, literally like mob-owned penny machines along Coney Island. And you would hear about this like the 70s in New York. They had a big cigarette machine and jukebox racket that the mafia was running in New York.
The jukebox was really big. They would like beat the hell out of people if they didn't have their jukebox in the bar.
Yeah. You put our fucking jukebox in your bar, or your bar's gonna get a Molotov through the window.
What?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wait, but why would the bar not want to put or were they not giving the bar any cut of the...
Basically that, they weren't giving them a big cut, and also just a man coming into your business with a big suit on, and he's like, either do this or I'll kill you, you know?
Right.
It just sucks.
Yeah. No, for sure, but why did it have to be so aggressive? I'm sure if they just went to the bar, it was like, hey, do you want to put this jukebox in there? Was someone going to say, yeah, that sounds great.
These mob guys were never very nice. They never...
It just seems an unnecessary thing to threaten someone to death with. Like,
the difference between somebody who dropped out of grade school and another person who like went to Harvard Business School, like
right.
Henry Hill, their communication techniques are slightly different.
Like Henry Hill started killing people for the mafia when he was 12. Like these guys grew up different.
Like, if you're selling drugs, there's no legal way to do that, but there's a very legal and profitable way to put jukeboxes in bars. It doesn't have to be a crime.
We ain't going straight, see? We ain't going legit.
They had this idea for a legal business, but they're like, well, we can't have a legal business. How do we make this illegal?
This is actually a perfect transition right now because I just did that C thing. Okay, look, I listened back to the first episode of this. James Cagney might not have been the inventor of C. I want to like put that correction in here right now.
Did he ever do it at all?
And that's the thing. I don't think he ever actually did that at all.
That's awesome. That makes it so much better.
That makes it so much better, right? His real claim to fame was another misquote by him, which is, you know, you yellow-bellied bastard.
Come out and take it, you dirty yellow-bellied rat, or I'll give it to you through the door.
It's a lot slower. It's like, you yellow-bellied rat. Like,
right.
It's a little... It's kind of like the Darth Vader thing where he's never said, Luke, I am your father. He said, no, I am your father.
Right,
and he got misquoted throughout time.
So I kind of misquoted the C thing on the last episode, but... We're correcting it now. We're here. It's all good. Cool. There's going to be a lot of that.
There's going to be another correction later on where we're like, actually, James Cagney did invent it.
Yeah.
So
it might have been Edward G. Robinson.
So for all you listeners, if you want the correct information, you can sign up for our Patreon.
Right. The Patreon will have all the corrections.
Find a way to send us a correction. I don't know how you do this. Maybe we'll set up an email. We'll set up an email
for corrections.
Cool. There'll be an email and a link in the description.
Yeah, cool. But also, just to let you know, we're not going to go too crazy with that shit, because we'll be here all day.
I figure what we'll probably do is Patreon-exclusive corrections episode, and we take a shot every time for every correction or something like that. We'll find some way to make it fun, but that'll be like a special episode we do once every, I don't know, month, and it's like a combination of the corrections we've gotten over like all the episodes since then.
We're going to do 10 push-ups for every correction.
The way we filter all that is we just put an unpaid intern on it. And
you go.
Oh, for all you listeners
sign him to a studio
there,
contract. Sign him to a studio contract and shoot at him.
that might be a little excessive, but I'm still open to the idea.
Well, we'll jump in here. So it's 1929. James Cagney's doing a play, Maggie the Magnificent, with Joan Blondell. The play never really like picks up speed. It kind of flops, to be honest. But one night, there's a special guest in the audience by the name of Al Jolson.
Who's Al Jolson?
So let me tell you a little bit about Al Jolson. What's that, Deb?
Nothing.
Al Jolson is by far one of the biggest names in film history and one of the biggest movie stars to ever exist. And we'll probably never do an episode on this guy, ever.
Why would we not do an
probably
episode?
not, but if we want to
probably won't.
Some other people and some other friends on to maybe do a guest takeover, that's maybe something.
Why would we not do an episode on it if he's so big?
So Al Jolson was the Russian-born American actor who was the star of the very first talking picture.
First
talkie. He was Russian. He was Russian born. He was one of Putin's boys. No, Putin was like a glimmer in some sperm at this point. But a glimmer in someone's sperm eye. So Al Jolson was he was the star of the very first talking picture, The Jazz Singer. This is so insane that this is the very first talking picture.
Wait, what? The Jazz Singer was the first talking picture?
Yes, in 1927. The Jazz Singer was the very first talking picture, and many of you might know about The Jazz Singer because it also had Al Jolson doing his blackface bit, and he was known as the king of blackface. At one point, this man, in the 1920s, he was the most famous and highest paid actor in the United States. He would even go on to be the very first star to entertain the troops during World War II.
Holy shit.
But yeah, nowadays he's more known as the king of blackface.
Did he entertain the troops in blackface as well?
Probably. Absolutely. Probably.
I mean, if that's like his most widely known character, it makes sense that he would tour with that.
Wait, so did he do multiple movies in blackface, or was it just a Jazz Singer?
He did multiple, but the Jazz Singer, what's so crazy to me, like I said, this is the very first talking picture that we have in the United States, and it's a white dude wearing blackface, and he's portraying like the struggle of Southern African American people, basically. And
wait, what? That's what that movie was about?
That's what it's about.
That sounds progressive, except for the fact that
that's the thing. That's the interesting part of it. I mean, like I said, I don't ever really want to do an episode on this, so I'll get it out now. But yeah, they thought that they were doing like this groundbreaking progressive thing.
The general consensus was that it was
representation. Like we can't. Like, these people won't hire African Americans for their movies, so I'm a white dude. I can use my white privilege to get in the movie, and then I'll put on blackface and be representation.
Fascinating take on that.
It was
fascinating perspective.
Huge blemish on American history. Absolutely a gigantic mistake.
Was this his idea, or did he get cast for it?
That I don't know so much, to be honest. That is a good question. I mean, I would imagine it was his idea. He was the biggest movie star in the world at the time, so like this definitely wasn't a thing that he just had to do for his career.
What studio was this?
It was Sunset Bronson Studios.
Okay. Does Sunset Bronson, is that a thing that doesn't exist anymore? Or do they change their name? Do they get absorbed into something else?
At some point, they became home in 1950s. They became home to KTLA television, and it's still in use. It's still KTLA. So the Sunset Bronson. Yeah, they're right near your house.
Oh,
basically.
cool. Okay,
or not to dox you right now.
Yeah. No, it's fine. I live in Hollywood.
They have a big plaque of Al Jolson in blackface on the front of the building.
Still, yeah. It's a little reference to the audience here. We actually record this podcast in Hollywood.
Hollywood. Drake's streets in Hollywood are not paved with gold. They are paved with garbage.
Broken dreams and tears.
You can't even see the stars on the boardwalk anymore. They're all covered in tears and garbage.
The heroin needles and feces now.
Does Al Jolson have a star?
Oh, that's a good question. That's a good question. I'm looking it up. He's got one out there. We'll go visit it and get a video of it.
Yeah, Patreon exclusive. I am not. I'm not really a fan of the idea of like taking stars off the boulevard ever. Like, I hope that doesn't really ever become a real topic of conversation. Just because it's like, what that star is representing is their contributions to film or music, or whatever their star is for. It's not being like, this was a good person. You know what I mean?
For sure. Nobody.
Michael Jackson, Elvis Presley. I mean, there's a bunch.
Yeah,
there's a lot of stars on the boulevard who did very bad.
Yeah, if you took off every star that like has like a dirty past, there'd be like 3 stars.
Well, not to mention those stars on the boulevard.
Polanski have a star?
Oh, I'm sure.
He's got to.
Absolutely positive he's got one. And not to mention, those stars on the boulevard, those people pay for them.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
you buy those.
Really?
Yeah. It's like $10,000. I mean, you have to meet requirements.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to be approved for it, but
there's
you also
a board
pay for it.
of like the city of Hollywood, right?
Yeah.
And then that board, an association with the Academy, I think, votes to determine if you're allowed, because Kevin Smith just got a star, so I think he had to go through all of this, and he talked about it, not just, but like a year ago or whatever.
Yeah. Oh, there was just a star ceremony like a couple days ago. Like literally, like LA reopened because we're recording this post the 15th when LA reopened. Like it was literally like night and day. Like
I wonder if it was Kevin Smith's.
No, his was before the pandemic.
Yeah, like I don't know if they were doing them during the pandemic because obviously like social distancing and stuff. Yeah. And then literally like the week that LA reopened, there was a red carpet premiere at the Chinese theater. So I was like, oh, we're just back. We're just back to this now, which is I'm happy to be back. But
that's great.
It was like a light switch though. It was like literally we were off and now we're on. There wasn't kind of like a slow ramp up.
Oh no, it opened right back up. Al Jolson's in the crowd one night watching James Cagney and Joan Blondell tear up the stage in Penny Arcade. Like I said, the play was flopping, but Al thinks to himself, this could be a picture. This could be a moving picture. Those things that I do in blackface. So he bought the rights.
Was he in blackface in the crowd?
Yeah, he's in
blackface. Oh Nobody recognizes him in the real world unless he's in blackface. So it's like...
Yeah, they thought he was a black actor, actually. They didn't even know he was white at the time. Yeah, he never took it off.
I just want to paint a picture that we went from Al Jolson way back then, and then not too long ago, Tropic Thunder.
Yeah.
And then now you could not do Tropic Thunder.
Yeah.
Really.
Tropic Thunder coming out in like 2007 was like the perfect time to do that.
Yeah.
But also, like the whole point of it was they were making fun of like Hollywood. Like it was supposed to be a commentary.
I think it should always be within the boundaries to make fun of something that was terrible. Like I mean, Jojo Rabbit.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
I mean,
you made a comedy about Hitler.
Exactly. Like if you're making fun of it, I think go ahead for sure.
God, and I want to go on record.
I love that. I think this is one of the best comedies ever. But
that being said, Robert Downey Jr. had some cojones
balls to do that.
Role.
That was that must have been a big decision on his part. Of like, if this is
everyone should go listen to Jamie Foxx's explanation of that on Rogan. Rogan asked him, he was like, "What about fucking Robert Downey doing blackface?" And Jamie was like, "You know, he called me up and he goes, listen, dude, I got a question for you." And he asked him if it was okay, and Jamie was like, "No, man, you're my guy. Of course, it was all, I trust you with this." And it's
cool that he asked for a second opinion first. I
think he asked for several, but
and also like the actor, it just worked out. Like it was Robert Downey Jr. Had it been Larry the Cable Guy.
No way. It helped.
Yeah.
That was like a great actor,
right?
But also, I want to go on record saying Tropic Thunder is one of the best movies of all time. I don't I don't know who won Best Actor for like that 2007. It should have been Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah.
And honestly, that movie should have been up for Best Picture. They never give comedies a shine, but Tropic Thunder is a fucking masterpiece.
Oh yeah, it is. It absolutely is. It was Ben Stiller's like height.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
maybe Best Picture is a bit of a stretch. I don't know what else came out in 2007.
No, I agree. It was amazing,
incredible. I think it's my favorite comedy ever.
Yeah.
So
Al Jolson buys the rights to this play for $20,000 in 1930, which we'll run it through the old inflation calculation here, and that comes out to $317,000. So it wasn't for buying a whole play. It was about right.
So he bought.
That's pretty on par.
That's how much it cost to buy the rights to it?
Yeah.
Okay.
He bought the rights to it for modern day money, $317,000.
That sounds right.
Yeah. So old minstrel show Al really loved the play. He pitched it to Warner Brothers with the stipulation that James Cagney and Joan Blondell reprised their supporting roles as Harry Delano and Myrtle in the film version.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. I thought that was cool too.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's one of those things where, again, I always say this isn't the first time it happened, but it was one of the first times this would happen. I mean, it was one of the first times where they would adapt a play to a film using some of the original cast. And they went on to do this a lot. We'll do a whole episode on the Dead End Kids, but that was a huge deal they took this play called Dead End right off of Broadway into Warner Brothers, filmed it with Humphrey Bogart, and it came out as this dead end with the dead end kids who were in the play.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, it was
cool.
amazing. Yeah.
Wait,
Well,
so
from a production standpoint, you guys got to think about this. 'Cause I want to do a whole episode on movie musicals because like musicals is my past experience and stuff, teaching it and whatnot. So when you're thinking about, let's say, a musical instead of a play, you got so much more in rehearsals and learning music. It's way more than just learning lines. That's time of training for those actors. So you're saving money by just transferring them from the live show to the picture.
They're masters. They're masters at
Yeah.
it. Right. They can literally be on set, and within a day or two, you could be filming.
They're memorized.
You could be getting
They're off book.
absolutely. Yeah. You could be getting final footage within a day or two with these people. Yeah.
And now, how did was Cagney excited about moving into pictures? Did he think it was kind of like it was just like, I'll do it because it's paid, but I'm not really into it? Like, how interested in film acting was he at this time?
I don't know if Cagney ever. I don't know if he knew the word excited. I don't think he ever smiled or laughed even, unless he was like paid to do it. But actually, that's a good question because no, he was not. At the time, I think he, along with a lot of other actors, saw this. This was talking film. And I know we've made this like kind of correlation before, but this would be like going to YouTube or something. It'd be like this like new like young thing to go do. He kind of pursued acting in film because I'll get into it, but he and his wife both went to LA to go see if they could make it on some of these new talkies that were coming out. And it was this thing of like, can we get into the circus?
Yeah.
It was like it was like, yeah,
Can we get into the circus?
Yeah, like, can we get into this new weird thing?
They literally worked at a circus, kind of. Like, vaudeville is basically a circus.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
It's so interesting that's seen as like a higher class of art than film, with the modern perspective of such.
Yeah, but Warner Brothers bought the play from Al Jolson, and I'm sure he made a shit ton of money off of this, and I think he like bought a bunch of shoe polish for his face or whatever. But they retitled the film Sinner's Holiday, starring Grant Withers and the lovely and talented Evelyn Knapp. It was a very cool movie. I highly recommend it. It's got all like 1930s Coney Island.
Wait. Cagney didn't play him? I thought you said Cagney
They
played
weren't
himself.
starring. They were playing supporting roles.
Okay, right.
Cagney is one of the Cagney and Joan Blondell were playing but that's the funny part, and this goes all the way back to even now in 1930. It's that age-old adage where you get that supporting role, but it's the coolest role in the movie.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's
that Christian Bale and the fighter effect.
Yeah.
Where that's what everybody was there to watch.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. That launched him. Playing this role launched him in this film. It was
cool.
Everybody started paying attention to him after this. But it was the first of many roles that he'd play where he was the sympathetic anti-hero caught up in a world of crime due to his upbringing. And this was, throughout Cagney's career, this was kind of the characters that he would play. It was always sort of a warning tale. He would play like this gangster who broke bad when he was a kid, and now he reaped the benefits from it very shortly, and now he is facing the consequences of his actions. He did a lot of movies like that. I think Warner Brothers was on this big mafia film kick in the 1930s. They were the mob studio, and I almost wonder if it was a thing for sponsors that they had to kind of start saying that the message was to not do this. Like especially in the 1930s. I mean, it was so ripe with people's kids joining the mafia all over the place. And now they're putting out all these movies that makes it look cool as shit.
Right. Yeah, that might have only been a law that like you have to show that crime doesn't pay.
Right. Yeah.
Comics had like a similar kind of law for a while where like you had to like you can only show these things if they met this certain criteria and things like that. So
I see. Yeah, because like in Public Enemy in the 1930s, the movie that comes out, it ends with spoiler alert for Public Enemy, by the way.
It's only almost 100 years old.
Yeah. Spoiler alert. I'm so sorry if you haven't seen this yet. Go watch it. But it ends with him being kidnapped and killed by the mob. And you remember the scene. His body is propped up at the front door, and his family thinks he's like home. They're like, "Oh, our boy is home. Let's make some like, spaghetti and shit for his return." And they open the door and he's just standing there like dead, and he just falls over dead in the doorway. And that's how it ends. It's like the end. And before the movie, and before Public Enemy, they have this. There's a whole foreword by Warner Brothers, and I'm going to read it to you right now. It is the ambition of the authors of The Public Enemy to honestly depict an environment that exists today in a certain strata of American life, rather than glorify the hoodlum or the criminal. While the story of The Public Enemy is essentially a true story, all names and characters appearing herein are purely fictional. And the end credits started with like a bookend to the message. The end of Tom Powers is the end of every hoodlum. The Public Enemy is not a man, nor is it a character. It is a problem that sooner or later we, the public, must solve.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So
A lot
whole
of
movie's
movies
kind of like a PSA.
that were controversial,
Yeah.
or a lot of movies that were gamed at being almost propaganda-y, gave that disclaimer, or a very similar one. Like Reefer Madness begins the same way. It's like the characters and events in this picture are and it's basically like, we don't want you to be confused, so we're gonna spell it out, and then you're gonna be entertained.
Yeah, the subtext does go right out the window.
One day on Patreon, we'll release our original episode of Reefer Madness from back in the day. But also, we'll have to redo that one as well with the three of us, for sure.
Cool.
Cagney also, and this was right in that thing that we're talking about here, he did a movie called Jimmy the Gent. And Jimmy Burke, the extremely violent real-life mobster played by Robert De Niro in Goodfellas, he took on that nickname, Jimmy the Gent, because of James Cagney. But,
Oh, wow.
What?
yeah, but James Cagney played this character, Jimmy the Gent, and it was supposed to be this like warning message to not join the mafia. And he has real-life mobsters later on who are extremely dangerous, like
Inspired
vicious
by those movies.
animals.
That's
Yeah.
also weird to think of. I mean, obviously that makes sense. This was the 30s, but like weird to think of time like that.
Yeah.
That like they grew. Like wow, so all the mobsters that we talk about today, like they came after this
Absolutely.
stuff, right? Yeah.
This was right after the 1920s. The mob, they were all known as the Prohibition era mobsters.
Capone, Lucky Luciano, the
Yeah.
Commission was formed. That's that
Like,
whole thing.
The big daddy mafia guys.
But then everything like
when Prohibition ended, it was like an AD of the mob, basically, where all the guys who came after the Prohibition there were some big mobsters that came, no doubt about it, but it never was quite like the 1920s.
Yeah, right.
You know?
Yeah.
And I mean, these guys were getting
all
like,
those Scorsese movies, like Irishman and Goodfellas and stuff. That's all like way
50s,
past.
60s,
Yeah, that's
70s,
crazy to think about.
yeah.
That's crazy to
50s,
think about.
60s. Like Jimmy the Gent, Robert De Niro's character, that was 50s. You know, Henry Hill and Jimmy the Gent and all those guys, those 50s, 60s. But again, they all started when they were kids as well.
Right, yeah.
But still, I mean, James Cagney was not only alive; he was still very recently doing films before Henry Hill came along.
Yeah, did they ever ask him in interviews like, or how do you feel about like these gangsters like clearly being inspired by your work?
Not really. I don't know. I haven't heard.
I mean, it's not his fault, but like,
No, for
it's
sure.
interesting.
Yeah.
To say, I wonder if he ever like.
Well, he
regretted
did
taking any of
say
these roles or
he
anything.
did say at one point, I mean, I'll get into it later on in the episode, but the first time he leaves Hollywood, he says he's sick of women being hit in films and he's sick of shooting at people. He's basically sick of being the guy who just shoots at people and hits women.
Yeah.
And everyone cheers for him every time he does it.
Right,
It
yeah.
became like a real soul suck for him.
Yeah, I imagine that
Yeah.
makes sense.
So Jimmy's filming Sinner's Holiday with Joan Blondell and Jack Warner, head of Warner Brothers. Loves Jimmy, but doesn't see the chemistry with Joan Blondell that everybody else saw, and eventually everybody would see it. At the time, of course, Jack Warner doesn't see it, so he kind of just wants Jimmy. And I have a theory as to maybe why he didn't see their chemistry, because James Cagney had this thing where if he ever had to do a scene with a woman, in order to like honor his wife, he would eat a bunch of anchovies and stuff to have really bad breath.
What?
Yeah, he would do things where, like, if he had to kiss a lady on screen, he would make sure his breath was, like, really bad or something.
That's
like
so rude.
Yes,
Yeah,
I know. That's the thing. It was like, it was supposed to be like, you know, this sweet thing, and people talk about it like a sweet thing he did for his wife, and it was like, well, it wasn't very sweet for his scene partner.
Yeah, and also like what, like, just to make sure that she doesn't enjoy it, because if she enjoys it, that's cheating somehow.
Yeah.
Like,
Also,
And
it's
you
like
just
still have to
completely
do the
not
thing.
professional.
No,
Yeah.
not professional at all. Also, like, I don't know. What if she was already pretty uncomfortable with kissing in that scene in the first place
Yeah.
anyway? You know,
Yeah,
it wasn't
right?
exactly a great time to be kissing people on scene as a woman.
yeah, that seems like just mean.
Yeah, but Jack Warner liked Cagney enough where this is where this first contract comes in. So he goes to James Cagney. I think like 2 or 3 weeks into filming Sinner's Holiday, Jack Warner came to Cagney, and Cagney signed a $500 a week, 3-week contract with Warner Brothers as kind of like a probationary thing. It was a 3-week contract.
Interesting. You can shoot a movie in 3 weeks back then?
No, that's the thing. I mean, he would still be doing this movie probably. Well, actually, no, they probably would be wrapping up in about 3 weeks because it was about a month to shoot a movie.
Really?
So yeah,
I thought it would take longer back then, just because like equipment and stuff.
Oh
was,
no,
like,
they would whip these things out.
Really?
It was
Well,
like
they didn't
usually
have
a month
any
and done.
rules. Yeah, they
Right.
were like, we don't go 15 hours today. You're fucked. Like, whatever. Listen, you're not gonna sleep. I'm gonna put bad fish breath in your mouth. I'm gonna slap you and then shoot at you with real bullets.
Were there like constantly massive like fatal accidents because people are like way too tired to be doing their jobs?
Oh yeah, people died making movies. People died making movies in these times. Yeah, and you'll hear in some of the later episodes, you know, like we talked about Wings later on, and oh yeah, there were deaths on set. It was quite a time.
Was it kind of one of those things where it's like, obviously it's always a tragedy, but like, you know, like I assume a lot of people died off building skyscrapers because just falling, but that was kind of like, you just kind of expected it. You're just
Yeah.
like, well, if I get this job, I might die. And you know,
Yeah.
oh, did you hear Joe fell off the building yesterday? Ah, damn. I like Joe, but
Same
it was
with
bound to
doing
happen.
stunts. Same
Yeah.
with doing stunts.
Was it
You
kind
might
of looked at
die.
as the same way, where it's like that, you know, this is a dangerous job and
Part
like,
of the
it's not
job.
super shocking if like there's an accident or
Right.
something?
No,
Okay.
you kept rolling. I mean, if there was a dude there would be people that died on set, and they would just be like, "Well, we're not missing the next scene." You know, like get them off set.
Humans have died for the entertainment of other humans for centuries.
Very
Like,
true.
think of the Colosseum. Are you not
Yeah.
entertained? Like, we're
Yeah.
fucking heathens, guys.
Damn right. Yes. Yeah, Cagney, and this was right off the bat as well. He's on his very first movie set, and he already gets this reputation for being very stubborn. He would argue with John Adolphi, the director. He was already arguing with the director. But that was one of the reasons Jack Warner liked him so much. Jack Warner apparently came to set and was like, "Oh, I like this guy's moxie, see?" And he gave him this contract. And
So he enjoyed that James was arguing with the director, and never thought maybe he's gonna argue in the
Yeah,
future,
at some point-
and this is gonna be annoying.
at some point, he's going to turn that on to me, and he very much did. Yeah, according to Celador Cagney himself, he said, "There was a line in the show where I was supposed to be crying on my mother's breast. The line was, 'I'm your baby, ain't I?' I refused to say it. Adolphi said, 'I'm going to go tell Zanuck,'" which Zanuck was Daryl Zanuck, the biggest producer in the world at the
Okay.
time. He said, "I'm going to go tell Zanuck." I said, "I don't give a shit what you tell him. I'm not saying that fucking line." So that was his very first movie role, you know. But you got to think, I mean, this guy's been 10 years in the game already. He was on Broadway.
Yeah.
He has been, especially vaudeville. Imagine how ruthless vaudeville was,
Listen,
you know.
when you grew up tap dancing and boxing,
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
cut from a different cloth. All right?
So this argument about that one particular line that he didn't want to say, they took the line out and extended Cagney's contract for 3 more weeks after that. So when that 3 weeks was up, they were sold on Cagney. The CAG is going to stay here at old Warner Brothers. So they offered him a 7-year, $400 a week contract with only every 6 months guaranteed. So every 6 months you're going to be up for review.
I see.
And we can end this contract anytime we want, basically, but you can't. You can't end this contract. That was what the contract said.
Unless he does something to make them want to end it.
Yeah, for sure. And also, I mean, it was $400 a week. Doesn't sound like a lot, but you do the old calculations here. It's $6,000 a week.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's not bad.
$25,000 a month. $288,000 a year to do movies with Warner Brothers.
For 7 years?
For 7 years.
Was there not a clause in there for a renegotiation?
Not for
that's
him.
a long time to be locked into that amount of money. And I did actors back then still made millions, right? Some of them did, or was that unheard of?
No. The actors made millions back then.
Yeah,
there were some actors in the 20s who made
an actor for 7 years to not even $500,000 a year.
Yeah, a 10-year vet of Broadway.
Yeah, seems like a little ridiculous.
Right.
Did he find a way to renegotiate?
Oh, well, he did later on. He did later on.
Before the 7 years were up?
This episode 2 should be called James Cagney's War with Warner Brothers. This becomes...
Okay.
This leads to multiple walkouts. James Cagney was the king of walking out of Warner Brothers. He was the beginning of the end of these brutal studio contracts, basically.
Wild.
He did a lot for this.
Wild.
But yeah, that's sick. So
Jack Warner didn't stay a fan for long.
Right. No. Jack Warner was definitely not a fan for very long. Yeah, and that 6 months thing, apparently they did that every 6 months we're going to renew you. And, that was supposed to be incentive for you to basically stay in line and keep up the good work, and don't go against the studio and anything.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like an anti-renegotiator.
Yeah,
if you start trying to renegotiate, we can just drop you.
Yeah, for sure. You got 6 months. Especially 3 months into this thing, the next 3 months, you better make damn sure that they want to renew.
Yeah.
And I mean, but they had a problem with him right off the bat because his next role was this gangster film called The Doorway to Hell, and this thing blew up. This was a huge box office success, and he overnight became a recognizable movie star. He became a household name instantly.
Shit.
Yeah. And shit. That's what Jack Warner said.
Oh, fuck.
Oh, shit. That's good. Yeah. Everybody's yelling his name in the streets, and Jack Warner's still you're only worth $400 a week to me, kid. And Warner Brothers, they were on, like I said, they were on this huge gangster movie streak. They did one of the, we'll absolutely do an episode on this guy later on. The king of gangster films in the 30s was Edward G. Robinson. He made it big on Little Caesar. And
the pizza company?
Yeah. He made it big on some pizza. He's just shooting pepperonis at people from a Thompson.
That sounds much better than bullets.
That's very true. I'd rather that. I'll pump you full of mozzarella. But yeah, Edward G. Robinson started this. I say he started this thing where it was mafia films were like DC movies at Warner Brothers at the time. They were the house of the mafia films. And James Cagney did another movie in 1931 called Other Men's Women. And then his next one that same year, which was the big one, Public Enemy, in 1931. So, like I said, I mean, this guy is he's going. He hit the ground running, still under this contract that absolutely would prove to not pay him enough immediately.
So how long did it take him for him to start being let's talk about this $400 a week thing?
It took a while. It took longer than you would think.
Oh.
Yeah, 3 movies exactly. And for Public Enemy as well, for anybody who's a fan of Public Enemy, James Cagney was originally cast as the nice guy, Matt Doyle, and Edward Woods was originally supposed to play his character, Tom Powers. But they were 3 days into filming, and the director, William Vellman, he turned to Cagney and literally said, "You're the star now." That was the words he used, and he switched their roles.
Oh, man.
Just right there on set, 3 days into filming. Probably took the scripts out of both their hands, swapped them, and was like, go back to your trailer and memorize these lines instead. Knowing James Cagney had already memorized them.
So you at least still got a trailer back then. They didn't just send you over to some folding chairs.
Yeah, or like a sewage pit or something. Go back to your cage. They had like a guy come out with like a cattle prod, get you back in there. Memorize your lines. They'd shoot at you, at your feet.
Yeah. Wait, this is a dumb question. Were there air conditioning back then?
Probably not in a studio. No, there's no way that there was air conditioned like stages.
No, in like the trailers and
No.
Nah.
Air condition was not invented until like the 50s. Neither was refrigeration.
For real?
Let's look
It's
into
compression. What the fuck? Do you not know how a refrigerator AC works? Yeah.
We have electricity
There was
by
an
this point.
Was
right?
there AC in a Model T Ford? I don't know. No, the answer is no.
Wait,
I'm letting this conversation continue.
we've had electricity since like what? Like wait, what was electricity?
Go ahead.
No, what was electricity? I thought that was
Let's go.
1800s. But that was like the industrial. That was part of the industrial
yeah.
revolution.
You got it.
Is it really?
I was hoping you would say like 1972.
Technically, electricity's always existed, but you know.
Yeah, there you go. Tesla found it.
You just found it. Yeah, 1893. Yeah, it was in 1893.
Elon Musk discovered electricity.
So if there's electricity, then why then are there not air conditioners and refrigerators?
I mean, they're shooting live ammo at these people. Giving them air conditioners sounds like a luxury that they're just not gonna go for.
I think a lot of, I mean, I could be wrong and we could research this more, but I don't think the technology for that compression was invented until like after World War II.
They did
Because
not have
none
air
of the
conditioned trailers. Yeah.
air
and none of
conditioner
the-
was invented in 1902. We
Was it
had
really?
it.
All right.
Yeah, we had it.
All right. So I'm totally wrong.
Here, not in a Star Wagon, I guarantee you.
So the actors are just
There's
like
no way to
hot
find
as
that.
shit, sweating through their
Absolutely.
costumes and
I'm
stuff.
I'm sure.
That
Yeah,
seems
but it's
like
California. It's,
Yeah, and plus it's in black and white. They can't really see your pit stains all that much, you know. But yeah, this is also the time where people wore suits every fucking where they went. Like
very
people
true.
were in just full suits in the middle of July, you know.
like wool suits too.
Yeah. I don't know if people just, and I guess they were all a very thin people, probably because they sweat out 10 pounds a day into their
It was the Great Depression.
suits.
Nobody had fucking food. to
Yeah,
eat.
no one had food. Like,
and also refrigerators were invented in 1899. So they absolutely they absolutely had access to all this stuff.
we'll cut this whole thing.
No.
No, we should. We
No,
should
no,
because
no.
some of the time I'm full of shit and I
Yeah.
talk out my ass. This is one of those. I just
usually the wrong one, so I want.
I wanted to
this one.
step
Yeah.
back and let it all happen. I was letting the art live.
I made a gross assumption and I just assumed that, you know.
Sometimes you just
that
have to
stuff.
let the art breathe, you know. So yeah, the movie Public Enemy at the time, it only cost $150,000 to make, and it was the first low-budget film to make $1 million. $1 million.
I found what I was thinking about. Freezers were invented later, but refrigerators were predated that.
Why are freezers so much harder?
1 million in 1931 was nowadays 17 million.
Wow.
So this was it made bank. I mean, especially
Cool.
considering the $150,000 budget, you make $1 million back.
Wow.
And
Holy
this
shit.
is one of the reasons why Cagney became so big so fast. It was just these gigantic movies, and it happens.
Yeah.
This is also the film, though, where Cagney, this is where he begins to get a little weary of how the studios work. Because this is where he learns that the studios just don't like to spend money on blanks and squibs and all that shit, you know, because clearly they're making money.
Yeah,
It's not that they can't afford it. They just want to see you have real life shootouts with some of the dudes on set.
It's better for the acting.
It's better for the acting, for sure.
Can't fake it if it's real.
It's method.
Can't
Stanislavski.
fake it if it's real.
Oh no, Drake's dying.
You can't fake it if it's real.
Yeah, see. Oh, by the way, if you want to see a more recent film with live ammo, there was one in 1985 where they used live ammo.
That's too long.
It was Russia.
Long ago. Yeah.
It was Russia. They made it.
Of course.
There's this Russian movie called Come and See, and they just straight up like shoot at teenagers in this movie.
Holy shit. Yeah, because I mean that was a long time ago, but not long enough ago.
Right. Yeah. And,
so that was right before the collapse. That was a few years. It collapsed. The Soviet Union collapsed in like 90 or 91.
It was because of that.
So like they're like, we got all this ammo. We're not going to use it. Let's just fucking shoot people.
Yeah, they would have never done that after the collapse. They got to save that precious ammo.
Public Enemy on the black market. Go ahead.
Public Enemy was also the movie where the famous grapefruit scene came from. This was a different grapefruit scene that, Dev had to do back in the day for rent money. But
back in the day, shit.
Last week,
struggle is real. It's a pandemic, bro.
Give me the hookup for that. I need some extra income.
This part of Public Enemy is one of those. It's another one where like Jimmy's character Tom Powers walks into the kitchen in his pajamas for some breakfast with Mae Clark, and he's just a real dick. Like his character is a horrible human being. He's all hungover. He's tired from murdering people all night as a mobster. He doesn't want to hear anything that Mae's got to say this morning.
Tired of murdering people.
And I want to play the audio from this scene just to give you context of what's going on.
Ain't you got a drink in the house?
Well, not before breakfast, dear.
I didn't ask you for any lip. I asked you if you had a drink.
I know, Tom, but... Well, gee, I wish that...
Hey, you go down wishing stuff again. I wish you wasn't wishing well. So that I could tie a bucket to you and sink you.
Maybe you found someone you like better.
And the scene ends with Cagney slamming a grapefruit into Mae Clark's face. Hard. Like, really hard. And it was called one of the most famous scenes in film history, the history of film, for a long time. And many believed it to be one of the big contributors to the new trend at the time of leading men physically striking women. They thought this was definitely a big contribution to that.
Wait, but why was this a trend?
So this started as a trend in the early 1930s. I mean, I'm sure men were hitting plenty of women in the 1920s in those movies as well, but this is where you could actually start to hear the slap when the hand hit the face, in the talkies.
It's a much more enriching
one of the
experience
great
for the audience.
contributions of sound for film.
Wow, I could really hear the
slap of the hand on the face.
It was in all the reviews. You could really hear the slap when Clark Gable's hand connects. Because that was 3 months after this film, Clark Gable had a film called Night Nurse, where he closed fist punched Barbara Stanwyck's nurse character, knocking her out cold, knocking her unconscious.
In real life, did she get knocked out?
No, he didn't actually hit her, but just the fact. I mean, I say that. Listen. There were a lot of hits that did connect back in these times, so don't listen to me. I don't know. All I know is that his character in the movie knocked a fucking nurse out cold, and everybody was like, "That's a leading man."
Yeah, wait. So they're not the villain in the movie?
No, not at all. As a matter of fact, this was an uptick in the 1930s. Somebody, I think it was, I have it somewhere in here, but I think it was Edward G. Robinson or someone who told James Cagney, if you're hitting a bunch of women in the movies they're casting you as, that is a sign that you are like a handsome leading man. Like, that means they want you to be like a movie star. Like, the more women you hit per scene, the better your career is doing, basically.
The funny irony behind all of this is that they were like, no, we have to make sure we give a disclaimer about gangsters right before and after the movie. But in the middle, we could just punch women and shoot bullets at people. It's whatever.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Wait. So, but the grapefruit scene. Did you say that wasn't originally in the script?
So the origin of the scene is highly debated. Daryl Zanuck, the producer, he claimed he came up with it in a writing session. The director claimed he came up with the scene when he saw grapefruit on the table as a prop, which I seriously doubt that. Mae Clark herself said that Cagney came up with it and she and Cagney developed it as kind of like a bit that they agreed to without telling anyone. And
that sounds like that's the story they told her to say.
Right. Yeah, for sure. She was like, we were just fooling.
It was my
people.
idea, I swear.
I ran into a doorknob.
What does Cagney claim?
Cagney claims it was the writers.
Oh, okay.
Cagney said the writers came up with that. And
I'll buy that.
I didn't even want to do it, you know? Like,
there's a lot of people trying to take credit for smacking a woman.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of smacking a woman. So Cagney films The Public Enemy, and then Warner Brothers contracted him to film the inevitable co-starring role with Edward G. Robinson. They want to put their two mob heavy hitters together in a movie.
Top 2 woman slappers.
Top 2 woman slappers in the world come together for this movie. It's like if Robert De Niro and Al Pacino hit women every movie they did. This is what you got.
This is the Irishman of slapping women.
And this movie also has a scene with violence against a woman. This time he's slapping his co-star and star of his first film, Evelyn Knapp. She was in the Penny Arcade movie, and now he's slapping the shit out of her. He's this big star. She's so proud of him, you know? She's like, look at this. You're slapping me. Look. Be like slapping your mentor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, like
James, look how far we've come.
Look how far. Now you're slapping me. Wait, at least wait until the cameras are rolling, Jimmy. Jesus.
I gotta practice, see?
And it was.
I'm gonna
rehearsal, see?
fish breath.
Oh my God, seriously. He's slapping you, he's fucking fish breath. It's like, this is the star of Warner Brothers. And it was Edward G. Robinson that said, basically, if Warner was making you slap this many women around, you are becoming a movie star, for sure. So Warner Brothers finally got a little bit of heat for all this violence from the brand new Motion Picture Production Code drafted in 1930. They booked Cagney on a movie with Joan Blondell called Blonde Crazy, and basically telling Warner Brothers, like, don't have him hit her in this movie. Just this one. We got to figure out this slapping women thing. Give his hand a rest for one whole movie, and we'll see if we can continue slapping women after this is over. But right now, we'll get him back. We'll get that hand working ASAP.
In the meantime, they set him up with a dummy in his trailer. That way he can keep his technique down.
You gotta keep your shoulder warm, kid. He's like chasing chickens around like Rocky, keeping warm. Public Enemy and Blonde Crazy come out in 1931. Both gangbusters, selling out night showings every single night, all night. These movies would play. And Jimmy, I mean, he's a movie star. Mm-hmm. Cue the Entourage intro music. So James Cagney's becoming this huge fucking movie star, and just like in the second episode of the third season of Entourage, called One Night in the Valley, where Vinny goes out to the valley to see his own movie, James Cagney started popping into a few of the theaters that were showing his movie, and he's noticing the lines around the block. He's noticing the theaters are filled. Literally, people are waiting outside for people inside to finish their screening to come out so they can go in, you know. And he is seeing how big of a movie star he is, and he starts to kind of wonder how underpaid he is at this point. He went to Warner Brothers saying that his salary should be adjusted based on the success of his films. And Warner Brother basically said, kick fucking rocks. We're not doing that. The contract is exactly what we said it was when you signed it. It's not changing.
And this is like, what, barely a year in?
This is barely a year in. Yeah. And God, that's the thing. I mean, it goes both ways, right?
No.
Because he did just sign a contract.
Ooh, no. I'm siding with Cagney on this one. I'm just saying this is so crazy that in the first year, he's already at the point where it's like, listen, fuckers.
He was just instantly a star.
Yeah, that's wild. I don't know if they're... because movies take longer to film now, so you can't be in as many movies. Like, right. I don't know if there's a modern example of someone who went from 0 to 100 in like a year.
Right.
Like, that's wild.
Well, and then not only did they refuse to give him a raise of any sort, they also told him that as one of the faces of the studio, he was contracted to promote other Warner Brothers projects that he wasn't even in. So when you sign these contracts, you're a Warner Brothers face, and everything that they make, you go to the premieres. You do press for all the other stuff too.
Are those? Do you think those are still in contracts?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Like, do you think like the Marvel guys are like contractually obligated to go to all the premieres and stuff?
I'm sure. Absolutely. So just like in Entourage season 5, episode 12, called "Return to Queens Boulevard," James Cagney said "fuck you" to the studio and returned to New York to get away from the biz for a bit.
How do you know these exact episodes? Have you seen this? Have you seen that show so many times you just know?
I've watched Entourage a few times, and when I was doing my research, I was like, you know what? That's exactly what happened. And he leaves. He goes back to New York. He does not want any part of this. If you're not giving me a raise, I'm going to sit here and make all this money for you and be this huge movie star and not get paid the way I want to. I'm going home. He left his brother Harry in charge of his apartment while he was gone, and he left Harry a letter that said, "I'm sick of guns and beating up women. Movies should be entertaining, not bloodbaths."
See, that's cool. So that's cool that he like saw like that was fucked up, a little bit, like, and he wants to, just make movies about something else. But also, could they not sue him? Could they not take him to jail? Like, is he allowed? I mean, he's not allowed to do this, but also like, is there anything that Warner Brothers can actually do?
Well, yeah, absolutely. They could sue him, but Warner Brothers, from their point of view, this is their biggest star that they have this year. I mean, maybe not their biggest. Some could probably argue, that there were some bigger ones on the roster. But this is their big, hot new guy. Public Enemy, Blonde Crazy. These were two of the biggest films of the year. This guy's making serious bank. So I think it was one of those negotiation things where, like, we're not going to cut him, but we need to figure this out.
Yeah.
He left Harry as basically back in LA to take care of his apartment, but also as his agent, kind of his like interim agent to talk to Warner Brothers to reconsider their terms.
Where's his wife in all this?
There is no word on Francis during this time, really. He makes an entire move back to New York City, and I can't find anywhere mentioning her coming with him, and at least not on anything I've been able to dig up. And I'd be very interested to know how she felt about all this.
Well, she was an actress as well.
She was an actress.
Did she never get a movie career?
I have not found out what happened to her acting career. I don't know what happened to her. There's definitely details left out from just making this like a 6-parter, But also, there's not a lot on his wife. But
what if it's like something where she was like a member of the National Socialist German Party and like Cagney just like scrubbed all the records of it afterward?
Right.
This period in her life just didn't happen. That's all.
Yeah. But he did a movie about literally his life. A guy who gets plucked from doing Broadway to go to LA to become like a big time actor and stuff. And in the movie, they actually address that he's married. He has a wife. What are we going to do with your wife? We can't tell people that you're married because we want the women to come buy the tickets. And
that's
right.
More attractive. They like hid her away.
Yes.
The studio
would
to make him more appealing as a star.
In the movie, the studio bought him an extra apartment to put his wife in and act like she was his secretary, basically.
Hilarious.
And
interesting.
I think that might be what really happened.
Yeah, that sounds like it must be. And like I guess was she kind of forced to give up a career of her
Probably,
own?
I'm sure. Yeah. I'm sure they urged her to not try to be an actor as well.
It's not gonna look good if she becomes famous too, and then they are married. And the cat's out the bag.
Yeah, you want famous people to get together and marry each other later, but you don't want for people who are married to get famous together. At the time.
I understand from a PR standpoint that decision makes sense. I wonder if that was a hard decision for her. I wonder if she was just like not really into it anymore. If she didn't really want to go into film, like I'd rather us have stable income than keep this going. Like
I'll look further into it. I would love to hear. And again, that email that we'll set up at some point. Please email us if you know anything about what happened to James Cagney's wife during all this.
If you have any information, call this number.
Missing person.
Missing persons report. Yeah. So
So his brother Harry's back in L.A. acting as his agent, and he's fighting with Warner Brothers for a little bit. And they finally agree that if the CAG would make his return, they'd sign a deal with him for $1,000 a week, which is $15,000 a week nowadays, $60,000 a month, $720,000 a year, basically.
Okay.
So
that's a sizable jump.
A sizable jump. So 1932.
But are they also at this point still saying, however, this is you're locked into this for the next 6 years?
Yeah, you're locked into this for 6 years. You still have to do press for other movies for Warner Brothers that aren't yours.
Okay.
And also,
so he didn't. At this point, he has not renegotiated future renegotiations.
No, he hasn't.
Okay.
He hasn't negotiated that yet. And also, one of the important things to remember right now is he also had not yet renegotiated how many pictures per year that he would do, and that became a huge hanging point for him.
But how many is he supposed to do a year right now?
I mean, right now they literally would have him do like 10 a year or some shit. Like, it was maybe not 10, I might be exaggerating, but a lot. He was doing a movie. He would do 2 movies at a time for, like, you know, and they would finish them both within like 2 months period, and he'd move on to do another 2 at a time and another.
So, but right now there's not a specific movie in his contract, or just kind of like as many as we want you to do?
Well, he came back in 1932. He comes back. The first movie that he did under this new contract was called Taxi. And this film was where that most famous quote came from: "Come out and take it, you dirty yellow-bellied rat, or I'll give it to you through the door." And that was, I said, I have in the notes here, make sure that that's the actual quote. So.
I
must have already learned my lesson. Because it became misquoted, like we were talking about earlier, that, "Oh, you dirty rat," and then a bunch of people just, see?
Yeah,
see? That became that somehow.
I mean, it's funny because, like, the whole Dick Tracy cartoons came from that. What are you doing? Copper saying?
Yeah.
Like, that character became popularized, very caricaturized, I should say.
Oh, yeah.
During all that Dick Tracy shit.
And he does. It is a full send, like, "Come out and take it, you dirty yellow-bellied rat." You know, it's like, it is full old sneery mafia guy, for sure. And, but I mean, at that time, you went and saw the movie, and I think during those times, if you couldn't remember the exact quote, it's not like you could just Google it.
Right,
you know?
it's
like you'd have to go see the damn thing again just to get the quote right. Unless they, like, printed it out in the papers.
A lot easier to get stuff misquoted back then, I'm sure.
I don't have...
I mean,
if you have another nickel for me to go see the movie, I'll take it, but...
I think they would just contact the studio and be like, "What's in the script?"
They would
press release. I don't think it would be that difficult. It's like a fucking phone
call up Warner Brothers. Say, "I don't want to misquote the movie when I'm talking to my friends at the bar. Can I speak to Jack real quick?"
I'm on the game well over here on Sepulveda Avenue, and I'm wondering what that quote was that James Cagney said.
I wonder if that was the studio that became KTLA.
Charlie Tuna. We're going to keep that Charlie Tuna part in the beginning.
We're
going to keep that for sure. Yeah, but he also, in Taxi, he spoke fluent Yiddish in the beginning of the film. And that just made critics like jizz. You know, they jizz their joppers, as I have it here in my notes. This film was also the first film that we see old Cellar Door Cagney's moves. This is the first movie that he danced on screen. And it was also the last film that he would allow live ammo to be fired at him. This was where he drew the line.
So it didn't take long for him to get to. I don't want
this anymore. He became real not fun real fast. You know, I guess we can't shoot at the CAG anymore.
Yeah, dude. Jack Warner's just like, come on, man, stop being lame, stop being a bummer.
Well, he almost dies. Whatever. There's a scene.
Is it because he got like way too close to call? Okay.
Yeah. There's a scene where I love this movie too. Definitely go watch this. Taxi with James Cagney is so good. There's a scene where he's in the window of this old warehouse running with his revolver, and there's all these like cool fucking noir shots of him with his revolver running through this old warehouse. Very cool. And he kind of gets the drop on some cops down below him. They're still like in the parking lot or whatever. And on action, he was going to fire a few rounds at them, duck down below the windowsill, and, you know, big mechanic Johnny with the Thompson was going to open fire into the window, and he was supposed to just kind of spray it at him in the window. that he was standing in was enclosed in this like steel bevel, basically, and a bullet hit that, ricocheted, and went right where Cagney's head had like just been.
But what are they supposed to do if they can't use live ammo?
I know, right? I mean, come on.
They just start doing squibs and stuff?
Yeah.
Because I've never seen either of the Taxis, actually. Is The Taxi with Robert De Niro a remake of this movie?
No.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
I can see where you're coming from, though. But nah, that movie was really good, though. Taxi with James Cagney is a good one.
Cool.
This is unbelievable, but that's all I have for part 2.
Oh, wait, really?
Yeah.
Oh, so you're going in a 3-parter then.
Yeah. I guess,
Cool.
this will be a 3-parter.
Well, wait, I have some more questions.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Let's open it for questions.
I have a question.
Okay.
Did they change the note shooting at real live ammo across the board or just for Cagney? Like, did he make a whole studio stop doing this in general, or they were just like, okay, Cagney gets to be the one who gets to swim.
Yeah.
The rest of you fuckers are still getting shot live ammo.
Basically, yeah. Cagney. I mean, it was another one of those things where it just depended on how big of a star you were.
How would that not cause a massive revolt?
I know.
Like, did they change it for other big actors too? Because I feel like there's a lot of people who'd be like, I'm just as big as him. Like, if he's not getting shot, and I don't want to get shot.
Well, he made this declaration of no more shooting at me in 1932, and a year later, part 3 is going to be all about the walkouts. I'm going to get into the walkout for these studios. Part 3, we're going to talk about the formation of the Screen Actors Guild in 1933. Which he was a big part of. He was a big part of the beginning. So when SAG came along, that is where people stopped shooting at people for the most part.
Okay, that was one of the things in the contract.
Yeah. No more shooting at our actors. Nice.
But also, fun fact to keep in mind, not only were people getting shot at with bullets, but women were getting hit by a professional boxer.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Felt like we should remind ourselves that he was a professional boxer.
Those women really don't get enough recognition for being slapped by every man in Hollywood back in those days.
Yeah, and like you said, like it's some of they were supposed to be fake, but I'm sure some of them just got slapped.
Part 3, we're gonna bring you some James Cagney action. We're gonna be talking about his war with the studios. I guess part 1 we told you all about his life. Part 2 we told you about him becoming a big movie star, a little bit about his film career, a little bit about slapping women. And part 3 we're going to tell you about how he went to war with Warner Brothers, and it was very ugly, but it was also a very necessary war to happen for film history, the history of film.
So is this episode 2, The Empire Slaps Back?
Charlie Tuna in the morning.
Cool. Well, if that's it, I guess we can close out with where people can find us. Dev, where can people find you?
Sailor_Dev on social media. And check out Abracadabra Films and MyFish app.
You can find me at Drake Cummings on Instagram, at Drake_Cummings on Twitter, and I'm sure by the time this goes up, there's like film history of film socials everywhere that you can find socials, so check those out.
Indeed.
We have a Patreon. If you guys want to sign up for our Patreon, we got different tiers, but we go through and have a bunch of cool stuff we do. We're going to go through and watch movies with you guys so you can hear our commentary.
Yeah.
And who knows, there may or may not be a drinking game involved.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And there's some silent films that I want to dub with, like I want us to speak.
Yeah.
It's
redub it.
The whole thing.
It's going to be fun.
We're also on Patreon. We're going to be doing basically the history everything history, the history of everything. I want to get into it. This would be a long road, but we're going to get into boxing. We're going to do the history of cars.
I'll do some game episodes,
video
and
games,
stuff. Yeah,
everything. We're gonna anything, and we'll have at some point just write in. What do you want to know the history of? What do you feel like? What do you want us to do deep dive on? Anything.
Right,
If you're a top tier Patreon member, you get to contribute to the formation and content of this podcast.
Yeah, boom.
So a lot of fun stuff coming.
And I've been James Wyatt Scott, and you can find me hammered drunk on the back lot of Warner Brothers with a Thompson submachine gun in my hand, getting ready for that action call, baby. And also at Jimmy DeLore, or at James Wyatt Scott on Instagram. All right, that's been the film history.
The history of film.
Whatever.